All right. Donald Trump has been in office nearly a year now. Has he performed better or worse than you had anticipated?
I guess to be completely honest, I did not have any real expectations for Donald Trump. And so I think as a person void of expectations, it's really sort of hard for me to answer that. But I will say that I am surprised that he has been able to maintain the following that he has, despite some of the things that he's done. But then again, I'm not surprised because I know history. And so it's a weird sort of, you're shocked, but then again, okay, this is, race baiting, this is sexism, this is bigotry, this is nativism, this is manipulating people, this is creating ideas as if certain things that are fake are not really fake, and things that are true are fake. I mean, there's a long history to politicians, shrewd politicians, manipulating many people in order to sort of serve their own agenda.
Do you think he's using racism to whip up public support for his administration?
Oh, without question. And I think that's one of the reasons, if not the principal reason, why he's elected. I think that's one of the reasons, if not the principal reason, that a certain segment of Americans still follow him, still imagine that he's going to make them or their nation great again. I think racist ideas in particular are central. And I also think racist policies, specifically as it relates to ensuring that people are still mass incarcerated for marijuana offenses, as Jeff Sessions basically stated that, I'm going to push against these states that are trying to legalize drugs, or even racist policies like voter ID laws. These people are incarcerated and therefore unable to vote, or people are unable to vote because of voter ID laws. And so I think by the twin nature of racist ideas manipulating people to continue to see him as their defender, and racist policies that prevent people from voting, I think this is how he thinks he's going to be reelected.
What do you make of those voters who voted for Barack Obama and then turned around and voted for Donald Trump?
Well, I do think that there are certain voters who are captivated by this idea of somebody who is not a Washingtonian, as a sort of outsider. And then combined with that, there are voters who believe that because they voted for Barack Obama, are not racist. And so, therefore, when they were attracted, presumably, to Trump's racist appeal, they did not say, you know what, am I attracted to his racist appeal? They said, no, I voted for Barack Obama, so therefore I am not racist. I also, thirdly, think that the economic anxiety that people were facing, and people were led to believe that Trump would actually help them out in that sphere, in the way Obama presented himself as somebody who would help them out. And they perceived that Clinton would not, and so that certainly attracted voters.
Last question. President Barack Obama said recently that democracy is fragile. He didn't mention Donald Trump by name, but I think he was alluding to all of the norms, the democratic norms that Trump has been violating fairly blatantly and on a very regular schedule. Do you share Obama's sense that our democracy is fragile? Yes or no?
So actually, I would extend Obama's construction of democracy as fragile to really question whether we truly have ever had a democracy. And so of course, I'm stating that have we ever really had a nation in which the majority of Americans were in support of the leaders, were in support even more specifically of the leaders' policies, consistently over time. And if we ask it from that standpoint, then I think there's room for debate. Because certainly before black people were able to vote, or I should say non-whites, before women, before poor people were able to vote, and now you have a political process in which big money can certainly control as opposed to big, numbers of people. I mean, I think it calls into question what democracy is, and in answering that question, aside from America, applying that to our nation currently and historically.
Donald Trump is coming up on his one-year anniversary. Has he been worse or better than you anticipated?
About the same, to be honest with you. I mean, I knew, as most people who followed his career did, that he was a charlatan, that he was someone who only cared about Donald Trump, didn't really have any deep beliefs, of course, had been a Democrat for a while, been a Republican for a while, just wanted to further his brand, and that, in this new Michael Wolff book, it's getting a lot of attention. That's pretty clear. Even if you didn't know it before, you'll know it reading that book. And I also thought, I was on a panel about a year ago at the Constitution Center in Philadelphia about what might happen with Trump presidency. And I said at the time, not to pat myself on the back, but I said, in terms of policy, his policies will pretty much be what the Republican Congress, the leaders of the Republican Congress want them to be, on Obamacare, on taxation, on regulation. And in fact, I think that's true. I mean, the kind of things he's actually done, succeeded in doing, from my point of view, bad things, wouldn't be that different in a Ted Cruz presidency, or even a Jeb Bush presidency, or a Marco Rubio presidency. So in that sense, I think he's the captive in some ways, willing captive, I think, of the leaders of the Republican Congress, because they've got, the muscle, and they understand policy, and they've been working on these bills for a long time. He doesn't really care that much. As long as he looks good, that's really all he cares about.
But there is something scary about the moment.
Well, yeah, I should say that too. I mean, obviously, I guess I wasn't as prepared for him, his colossal, insecure ego, pushing everything through Twitter, through these threats against North Korea, threats against the media, anybody he doesn't like. I mean, I think he's mostly paper tiger, I hope, anyway. We don't know about North Korea. I mean, that's not a joke, of course, in any way, but he's not going to shut down the media. He's not going to, as I said before, he's not going to, do away with the Constitution, with our separation of powers. But the fact that we don't know what he's going to do, that he is, the only thing predictable about him is that he's unpredictable, and he glories in that, and that is unusual. People talk about lack of precedence, and I think it's true that we've had conservative presidents before, but we've never had a president who didn't really seem to believe in anything but himself. I can't think of any other president like that. Even Richard Nixon, who was perhaps the closest analog in a way, because he went after his enemies, and of course would have been impeached and thrown out of office if he hadn't resigned for high crimes and misdemeanors, as the Constitution puts it. Richard Nixon was a serious politician who understood policy and wanted to bend policy to the long-term interests of the Republican Party.
Joan Hoff is not going to be writing a wonderful book about the Donald Trump presidency and how he was really a liberal.
Forgotten progressive, no. I don't
Exactly.
think so. But, I think, this is not news to anybody. I think this is in some ways a logical extension of a certain celebrity culture, I think, and also the devolution of the parties, not as institutions per se, but as institutions which can choose the president. Barack Obama, who I was a big fan of, at least for most of his administration, he was also a kind of celebrity president in the sense that, he was, as you know, a state senator, and then he ran for the Senate and basically was walking to that office. He gave a big speech at the Democratic Convention in 2004, which made him. But, was he prepared to be president? Well, he was a brilliant guy. He cared about policy, unlike Trump. But at the same time, he was not the choice of the party, that's for sure. Hillary Clinton was, at least at first. So I think, and we're going to see more of that, I believe, in the future.